Colleagues, good afternoon, and it's good to see you all again back here for our final lap. We have the agenda for the 148th Assembly. We had already dealt with item number 1 and 2. Number 3, we were supposed to conclude this afternoon, which we will do shortly for the reasons that I'm going to advance to you. So before we conclude item 3, I would beg your indulgence that we go to item 5 first, because the chair of the Standing Committee on Peace and International Security has a flight to catch this afternoon, and she will be leaving in like 30 minutes from now. So I am requesting you that you agree with me that we give her a chance to present so that she attends to the questions that you might have, and then we will go back to conclude item number 3, and then we will take the order of the items of the agenda as they are presented to you. So I don't see any reservations, so I take it that you approve what I have proposed. Thank you very much. Okay, so let me now call Ms. Augul Kuspan, who is the chair for our Standing Committee on Peace and International Security, and we'll be talking about addressing the social and humanitarian impact of autonomous weapon systems and artificial intelligence. Ms. Kuspan, you have the floor.
Chers collègues.
Dear colleagues, I must begin by informing you of the outcome of the deliberations of the Standing Committee on Peace and International Security. We were asked to address item 5 of the agenda of the 148th Assembly and to prepare the draft resolution. The Standing Committee met on the 24th of March to have a very animated discussion on the draft resolution. And following the introductory remarks by one of the co-rapporteurs of the committee, 34 speakers took the floor during the following discussion, and members discussed generally the amendments, either to support it or express some disagreement about certain concepts or about the terminology that should be used in the resolution. We then proceeded to consider 200 different amendments that had been received by the Secretariat in the specified time frame. And I must say that the discussions during the debate were very animated, but remained very coherent, and a whole range of views were expressed. The outcome is a resolution that underscores the role of parliaments in awareness raising and drawing up national legislation, and accountability of governments. The resolution also underscores serious ethical, legal and security-related issues raised by autonomous weapon systems, and reminds everybody that the development and use of autonomous weapon systems must be consistent with international law, and in particular human rights and international humanitarian law. And finally, it calls for international rules to avoid an arms race and guarantee human control of these weapons. Yesterday, the Standing Committee adopted the resolution on a vote. India, Islamic Republic of Iran and Russia opposed the text. Lithuania and China expressed a reservation on the text of the resolution. Australia, Canada, Cuba, France, New Zealand, Republic of Korea, United Kingdom and Turkey expressed reservations on a number of different paragraphs and on the use of autonomous weapons systems without the term lethal. So the text is now submitted for your consideration and adoption at the Assembly. And before I conclude, I wish to say that the Bureau of the committee for the first time used its capacity to set a study issue, having discussed the situation in Gaza at some length, and the Bureau decided to suggest that the next theme for the Committee on Peace and International Security is focus on the role of parliaments in promoting a two-state solution in Palestine. And for reasons of inclusivity, because of the sensitiveness of the subject, each geopolitical group should have the possibility of proposing a co-rapporteur if they wished. 2 names have been received so far by the Secretariat, but I'm sure that others will follow, and wish co-rapporteurs every success and fruitful cooperation, and I assure them of the support of the full committee. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much, Madam President, for the Standing Committee on Peace and International Security. Members, according to Article 32, Article 2, if any delegations wish to explain their votes briefly, they will do so after we have already made a decision. And the same applies should a delegation wish to express a reservation without opposing the adoption of the resolution. So, can you raise the name of the country, please? Iran. Okay. I have been guided here. I first have to, before I give the floor to the Republic of Iran, I have to ask the Assembly, after listening to the presentation that was made by the chair here, do we adopt the resolution? Thank you very much. The resolution is adopted. Now I'll give a chance to Iran because they had wanted to say something. Where is Iran?
No, he doesn't need to take the floor.
Oh, sorry, he doesn't need to take the floor. So, and I don't see any other request.
India.
India, okay. India, you have the floor. India, you have the floor.
Respected President, as kindly aware, the Indian delegation has apprised the chair of the first Standing Committee on Peace and International Security in the plenary of the committee that India does not associate with the resolution entitled, I quote, addressing the social and humanitarian impact of autonomous weapon system and artificial intelligence, unquote. Now I request you that our dissociation with the resolution may please be reflected in the final version of the resolution adopted by the Assembly in a form of a footnote. Thank you, Chair, for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you very much. India, that is taken care of on page 5 of the resolution. We have a footnote that indicates India and the Islamic Republic of Iran and the Russian Federation expressed their opposition to the entire text of the resolution. So it's taken care of India. I don't see any other hand, and since we had already adopted the resolution, I would now see the, I would now understand that there are no questions. There are no questions, and so we are done. Thank you for accepting this resolution with, of course, some reservations that have been shown, but also the noted objections that have been made. Thank you so much, Madam Chair, for that, and we wish you safe travels. Thank you so much. So like I said, colleagues, we will go back to item 3 of our agenda, which is talking about the general debate on the theme parliamentary diplomacy, building bridges for peace and understanding. I am pleased to note that over the past 4 days of our assembly, we have had very robust deliberations on a series of highly relevant issues. I would propose that we now proceed with consideration of item number 3, which is talking about the general debate on parliamentary diplomacy, building bridges for peace and understanding. We have had substantive and robust deliberations over the past 3 days, having heard some 185 interventions from close to 130 national parliaments and 20 partner organizations. Speakers of parliament, deputy speakers, members of parliament, including many young members of parliament, experts and officials have all shared their experiences, good practices and wisdom. In our deliberations, we recognized the importance of parliamentary diplomacy as a means to build trust, cooperation, and peace, and to advance democratic principles and human rights standards worldwide. We spoke about the need for immediate action from all of us, understanding that the intractable and complex challenges facing our world require collective and durable responses now. As parliamentarians, we are uniquely placed to ensure compliance with the rule of law and international norms, which are essential for the alleviation of conflicts which are causing widespread suffering, from Gaza to Ukraine, from Sudan to Afghanistan, from Yemen to Myanmar, to name just a few. We have also highlighted other areas where parliamentary diplomacy can make a contribution to peace. Now, in this area, because we are going to give you a summary of our declaration, which will be Geneva Declaration, I had requested that we share this summary. Instead of the president doing it, I'll share with the youngest in the House, youngest male member of parliament, and also youngest female member of parliament. And so I would request that they come before and address us. Are they here already?
Thailand.
Yeah, Thailand, I was informed we will have a male member of parliament from Thailand. Please come forward. And then we will have the lady from So, yeah, and Namibia, please, if you can all come forward. So, because this is part of empowering our youth, and you all know that we always talk about inclusivity, and we would like to be giving them some of these roles so that they are ready to take up when some of us retire. So, from Thailand, please come up.
We don't have it.
So they are going to highlight some of the areas where we have highlighted in the course of our deliberations how parliamentary diplomacy is going to work. I don't know whether we already have one.
If the lady is not around, we just go
And are we making progress or I should start? Is there a problem?
I wasn't aware that this is happening, so I just gave him.
Please allow him to read now. Can he take the podium? Half of it.
So shall I tell him I've redone it so it's bigger for you to see? Where do you want him to?
So, do we start it from this?
No, I gave you the papers.
This one.
So this addressing.
Just a moment. Yes, they had it.
Just read until addressing.
Please begin from here up to here. Okay?
Sure.
Please.
You have the
Thank you, Madam President, General Secretary, esteemed colleagues. I'm the youngest and the baby of Thai Parliament. Now I'm just 27 years old. I'm have an honor to speak to you all today, and thank you for the best session for many days that we have done before. Okay, I will start with the text from our colleagues that to highlight for you guys. We have also highlighted other areas where parliamentary diplomacy can make a contribution to peace, including harnessing the potential of parliamentarians to act as mediators and dialogue facilitators and bolstering citizens engaging in these processes. Enacting, overseeing, and monitoring the implementation of peace agreements and guaranteeing funding for healthcare, transitional justice, and institutional reforms. Urging all states to adhere strictly to the 1949 Geneva Conventions and their additional protocols, and advocating for increased recourse to the International Court of Justice and other international judicial institutions. Understanding the particular vulnerability of young people to conflicts and radicalization. Recognizing the vital role that women can and should play in conflict prevention and peace building. Taking measures to prevent violence against women, girls, and marginalized groups. Condemning identity-based hatred and advocating for holistic dialogue process to promote understanding. Recognizing that the deterioration of peace and escalation in conflicts disproportionately affects vulnerable and marginalized members of society and jeopardize development gains and the achievement of the sustainable development goals. Thank you. Thank you, Madam President and esteemed colleagues.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Honorable Tong Jai Sod from Thailand. I'm informed he's 27 years old. Thank you so much. Now, please introduce yourself.
Thank you very much, Madam President. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Emma Tangi Muteka, and I hail from the land of the brave, Namibia. I will continue where my colleague has ended. Addressing the underlying causes of conflict and the needs of at-risk members of population by increasing our focus on human security, applying a common security approach to finding solutions for establishing a shared sense of security, monitoring the early warnings of conflict, and preventing escalation through disarmament, reducing military spending, shifting budget priority, and holding governments to account. Working towards demilitarization of cyberspace and artificial intelligence, instead harnessing their potential for scientific breakthroughs, international cooperation and peace, restoring trust in multilateralism. I thank you.
Thank you so much, Emma Mateka, and you can come here for a picture, both of you, and then you can get going. I hope this will inspire you to go do some more work so that you stay in politics. Okay. You come close. Yeah. I hope they are able to take the pictures. Okay. Thank you very much and good luck. Thank you so much. Thank you so very much. Welcome. Okay. Dear colleagues, the draft Geneva Declaration on Parliamentary Diplomacy is now before you, and I'm not seeing any hands, so I take it that we all adopted the Geneva Declaration. Thank you very much. It is so decided. Colleagues, although we were not able to adopt an emergency item resolution on the need for urgent action to address the situation in Gaza, this humanitarian catastrophe has been at the forefront of our deliberations and consultations. We cannot remain silent. We do not have the time to reopen the discussion here, as we have other items of the agenda and we must complete all of them. But the Secretary General and I have prepared a leadership statement on the need for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza, which is based on the fundamental points that I believe we all agree with. The two of us plan to issue this leadership statement today. And this statement will read as follows. In view of the worsening situation in Gaza, we call for urgent action to alleviate the suffering of the people in the region, including women, children, and the elderly who have been caught up in the fighting. On behalf of the global parliamentary community, we call for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza. We reiterate our demand for the immediate and unconditional release of all hostages. We appeal for the relevant authorities on all sides to expand the flow of essential humanitarian aid to reach those in need in Gaza. We reiterate our utter condemnation of any violence against civilians and stress the need for respect for international humanitarian law. That is how our statement will read. So, thank you.
I see the delegation of Nigeria.
Okay, I've just read what the statement will read like, but I'm seeing Nigeria would like to take the floor. Nigeria, you have the floor. You have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. My name is Asukwe Peon, Senator of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Madam President, I have listened attentively to the statement you are prepared to issue, yourself and the Secretary General. And Madam President and this Assembly, the leader of the Nigerian delegation, His Excellency, the Senate President of Nigeria, Senator Godswill Akpabio, on Sunday, the 24th of March, made a passionate appeal on the floor of this Assembly. He pleaded that we take off the toga of politics and adorn the toga of humanity, adorn the toga of parents. He stated here on the floor of this Assembly
that most of us here agree with certain principles. He stated here that most of us are in agreement for a ceasefire. He stated that we are all in agreement that there should be a release of hostages and access to humanitarian aid. What the president has just read out is mostly what all of us here are in agreement. This present conflict began on the 7th of October, 2023. And we met in Luanda, Angola on the 23rd of March, on the 23rd of October, but we failed to reach a resolution. We are meeting here today again in March of 2024. Today is the 27th of March, 2024. Thousands of people have died. It has been, by the 7th of April, which is barely a week from today, this conflict would have been 6 months on. This assembly has met twice, and today is the last day of this assembly. If we leave here today, at the closure of this 148th assembly, without us making a statement, we would have met twice during the course of this conflict without the assembly making a statement. I pray and I plead that we put it to the assembly that we can adopt this statement as an assembly. Please, I plead with the members of this assembly to look into this. That is my prayer. Thank you very much.
Okay, Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you for the leadership statement, which I fail to reconcile in terms of its status. I would have preferred that the leadership statement be a statement of this assembly rather than the statement of the leadership, because we are meeting here as an institution of IPU, and IPU must, as an assembly, make such a statement to that effect, and not a leadership statement. That's the first observation. The second observation is a follow-up to what Nigeria said. Madam President, this is the second time that we've failed to come up with an emergency item. And yet, the tenets of our founding fathers, Krima and Passe, have extolled the need for diplomacy, dialogue, and negotiation. Now, we leave this assembly today with this Geneva Convention, where it is saying we should exercise parliamentary diplomacy, dialogue, and negotiation in order to look at the conflicts that are, in fact, threatening global peace in the world. Now, if we as an institution cannot apply diplomacy, negotiation, and dialogue within the institution, what moral ground do we have to leave this place and say we are going to advocate for diplomacy, negotiation, when we have failed to agree on an emergency item for the second time as an assembly? I think this is a contradiction of the highest order. Is an element of the highest irony that we are failing to apply that which we believe are the tools of ending conflict within our own organization. Madam President, I hope it will not happen again. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I believe, dear colleagues, we understand the interventions that have been given. They weren't really directed to the leadership of IPU because you're the people who voted against whatever that was on the table. So that said, this is called, this initially, before I give you more explanation, is called the leadership statement because you have given us the mandate, me and the Secretary General, to issue statements when something happens in the world. So we have been doing this on your behalf, and even this one, after the Assembly failed to attain the required number of votes, then we thought it was impetus for us to do something. So this is what we have done. But irrespectively, much as I think the two colleagues have spoken, and we can now agree, if you so wish, that this leadership statement, instead of being a usual leadership statement, which we usually do, me and the Secretary General, now it can also read as you are part of it, if you so wish. If you would wish to endorse it. Okay, would I be right if I say this statement, the leadership statement, has been endorsed by the Assembly? Yes. Okay. Okay, there are yeses and noes, but I think the claps have been more. Okay, because this matter, the way it was brought to us, it is difficult for me to say it is unanimously agreed when I hear the noes in the House. That being the case, it will only draw back to me again to say it will remain as a leadership statement. Agreed? Well, the no's and the yeses, but because it wasn't part of the agenda and it's not really discussed in a way that we do according to our rules, it wouldn't be fair for me to say it has been adopted by the Assembly when some of you are saying no. If it was by consensus, we would take it that way. But the statement I've read to you, it will eventually go out there as a leadership statement. Yeah? We agree? Thank you. So that's done. And so we will now move. We had already looked at item 5. So we go to item... Okay, thank you. So we go to item 6, which is dealing with partnerships for climate change, promoting access to affordable green energy, and ensuring innovation, responsibility, and equity. So you have before you the revised draft resolution as prepared by the Standing Committee and circulated to you. May I now request the President of our Standing Committee, Mr. Waven William of Seychelles, to introduce to us the draft resolution.
Madam President, okay, where do I press? Okay.
Try, okay, thank you.
Madam President, Secretary General, distinguished colleagues, parliamentarians of IPU. My task is to inform you of the outcome of deliberations of the Standing Committee on Sustainable Development. The committee was entrusted with the task of debating and preparing a draft resolution on partnerships for climate action, promoting access to affordable green energy and ensuring innovation, responsibility, and equity. The co-rapporteurs were Ms. Mira Al-Suwaidi from United Arab Emirates, who is also the vice chair of this committee, Ms. Lesia Vasilenko from Ukraine, and Mr. Sami Patra from India. They prepared a draft resolution and accompanying explanatory note. I take this opportunity to reiterate my thanks to the co-rapporteur for their great work, dedication, and commitment. I have also to mention the names of the IPU Secretariat staff members, Alexandria, Carly, Isabel, and Miriam, who coordinated the work of the committee in a collective effort for efficiency and precise guidance. I was flanked by a crew of super and amazing women professionals to do the job, and the whole committee delivered. They deserve a round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. Drafting of the resolution was conducted in plenary. The committee had received 293 amendments submitted by 27 member parliaments. This was a record number of amendments for our committee. Thanks to the engagement of the co-rapporteurs and all committee members, we were able to conclude the drafting process within the time allocated to us. I hereby thank all of them for their contributions, ingenuity, and team spirit. The team collaboration and the committee members' focus and objective engagement paid off. Yesterday afternoon, the committee examined the consolidated draft resolution and adopted the text by acclamation. India and Iran expressed reservations on the whole text. China expressed reservations on preambular paragraphs 7 and 8, and operative paragraphs 7, 8, and 25. Turkey expressed reservations on operative paragraphs 24, 25, and 26. The resolutions to seek advanced parliamentary action on meeting international commitments to address climate change by accelerating the transition to zero and low emissions technologies in a just and equitable manner, ensuring alignment with the Paris Agreement and results of the first global stocktake. The committee also approved a work plan for the next assembly. It includes a debate on the theme of the next resolution, a panel debate, the theme, the role of parliaments in preventive corporate tax avoidance and achieving sustainable development, as well as a segment to prepare for the parliamentary meeting at the United Nations Climate Change Conference in Azerbaijan, COP29. The committee reiterates its commitment to honoring its obligation, notes the steps being taken by the IPU leadership to consider amendments requests to improve the rules and statutes, to ensure that the dynamism of IPU stay on course with its mission. God bless you all, and a safe journey back home with renewed vigor and determination. Madam President, I thank you. I submit.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. We really appreciate. You have, excuse me, Mr. President of the committee, please have a seat here, and as we adopt this first and then ask the members if they have any questions. Colleagues, do I take it that the Assembly adopts this resolution? Thank you very much. It has been approved. And now I was looking around just to see if anybody would like to take the floor, and I don't see any, so I take it we have approved we have adopted this resolution, and there are no questions. The reservations that were raised are well noted. I believe we have all seen that. Thank you so much, Mr. President. Oh, he has left already. Thank you so much, Mr. President. That was fast. Okay. So now we move to our We move to item 7, which is reports of the standing committees. Now, our first one, okay. The first one will be our Standing Committee on Democracy and Human Rights. Please, you have the floor. Okay, Mr. Torosian of Armenia, please, you have the floor. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable President, Secretary General, distinguished delegates. The Standing Committee held 2 debates during this assembly. On Monday, there was a preparatory debate on the resolution entitled The Impact of Artificial Intelligence on Democracy, Human Rights, and the Rule of Law. The debate was introduced by the rapporteurs of the resolution, Michel Rempel-Garner of Canada and Nima Lugangira of Tanzania. It also benefited from opening remarks from the International Telecommunication Union and UNESCO, the 2 lead organizations on the AI within the UN system. The main message from the debate was very clear. Delegates see the many potential benefits that artificial intelligence can bring, such as creating new economic opportunities, accelerating medical research, and identifying actions to mitigate climate change. But more than 30 delegates who took the floor also expressed many concerns on issues that go to the fundamental aspects of our societies, including elections and democratic processes. Delegates asked, what will the development of AI mean for our ability to trust each other and to have confidence in what we see and hear? How do we limit the risks of negative uses of AI? What can parliaments do to safeguard people's rights and ensure that technology helps us to build the society we want? These are the pressing questions that the rapporteurs will seek to address as they draft the resolution, which will be discussed at the next assembly in October. The Standing Committee also held an important debate on sustainable actions to improve the life conditions of people with disabilities, including their chances for education and work opportunities. We had a dialogue with the chairperson of the UN Committee on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, complemented by the perspectives of parliamentarians who are at the forefront of the work to ensure the rights of people with disabilities. The debate highlighted the important role parliaments can play to advance implementation of the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities by ensuring laws, policies, and budgets advance their full inclusion in the community and remove all forms of discriminations and stigma based on disability. This includes addressing the multiple and intersectional forms of discrimination based on age, sex, gender, social origin, and others. Delegates put forward suggestions for IPU can pursue work in this area and recommended, first, to develop a handbook for parliamentarians on the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, similar to the IPU handbooks on the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination against Women. 2, to continue to foster such exchanges among parliamentarians on the topic. And 3, to explore the possibility of setting up a dedicated working group on persons with disabilities. I thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much, Mr. Torosian. Members, I take it that we note the report of our standing committee. Do we note that? Thank you very much. We now move to the Standing Committee on United Nations Affairs, and may I take this opportunity to welcome the President of the Standing Committee of United Nations Affairs, Mr. David McGuinty of Canada, to present his report. Mr. McGuinty, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Madam President. Good afternoon, colleagues. My name is David McGuinty. I am the President of the Standing Committee on United Nations Affairs, having been elected to the position last October. I have the honour to present our committee's work here at the 148th Assembly. Let me say at the outset how pleased and proud I was to open every session of our committee and its bureau, pointing to the IPU's new harassment policy. And colleagues, if you haven't seen or read the policy yet, I would commend it to you. This is an extraordinary important tool to ensure a safe workplace for all IPU staff and delegates. And it brings the IPU to a level of anti-harassment policy, which is very much a gold standard here and around the world. Our committee held 2 sessions here in Geneva. In our first session, we were very pleased to welcome the newly chosen United Nations Assistant Secretary General for Youth Affairs, Dr. Felipe Paulier, who is just 3 months into his job. Dr. Paulier elaborated on the new Office of Youth Affairs mandate to facilitate youth access to debates and processes across the UN system. He talked about trust. He talked about regaining trust. He talked about hope. He provided good examples of engagement taking place in various parts of the world and encouraged parliamentarians present to engage actively with the young people in their respective countries. Parliamentarians were very keen to embrace Dr. Paulier's message that highlighted the world's changed demographics. More specifically, the fact that now we have on this planet the largest single number of young people ever. Some 48 delegations were present for the vigorous discussion. Over 18 interventions were made, some of which highlighted innovative ideas from their own experiences engaging youth in their national work. The second session, yesterday afternoon, focused on the sustainability of the United Nations humanitarian work. The committee members were briefed by high-level officials from the UN Office of Coordination of Humanitarian Assistance, the UN High Commissioner on Refugees, the World Food Programme, and the UN Relief and Works Agency for Palestinian Refugees in the Near East, otherwise known as UNRWA. These officials shared important information regarding the state of the world and noted that beyond the headline-grabbing crises in Ukraine and Gaza, there are fires burning in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, in Sudan, and elsewhere. They were unanimous in stating this, that at the same time global military expenditures have reached a record-breaking $2.3 trillion per year, the UN's humanitarian system, despite inadequate funding, is delivering. Be aware, colleagues, the United Nations now has a hiring freeze. It is shutting down parts of buildings here in Geneva and New York. It is turning off elevators and lights and air conditioning systems in order to pay the bills. But these individuals reminded us that 1 in 5 children is now living in conflict. 1 in 73 people is forcibly displaced. 309 million people are experiencing acute food insecurity. 45 million children globally are at risk of wasting. UNRWA has had 171 of its workers in Gaza killed in the conflict. Over 34 delegations were present for this important discussion, and 16 made profound interventions. All of them praised the UN's work. Some noted their nation's specific contributions of humanitarian assistance, and it's fair to say, all heard the urgent plea for more support in our national budgets for the work these agencies are doing to ensure people can reach their potential everywhere, that we leave no one behind and live sustainably. Several parliamentarians asked for more focus in humanitarian efforts to prevent or address conflicts, particularly those that are forgotten or festering conflicts. The committee approved a motion put forward by its Bureau. The motion encourages parliamentarians to engage domestically on Security Council reform, foster debate in their parliament, discuss this issue with their permanent representative to the United Nations, be ready to ratify any changes to the Security Council that might be forthcoming. This was just the second motion the committee has ever passed as part of its new effort to focus on its work plan. Furthermore, on Monday, I was pleased to chair a high-level meeting of speakers and deputy speakers in preparation for the 6th World Conference of Speakers. The discussion focused on the profound crisis of multilateralism, and featured the UN Director for Geneva, as well as Rebecca Greenspan, the Secretary General for the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development. And finally, colleagues, the committee filled 2 vacancies in its bureau, with Mr. Hekab Arshakian of Armenia and Mr. Marcelo Asalinas Gonzalez of Paraguay being elected for 2-year terms for the Eurasian and GRULAC groups. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you. Can I take it that the Assembly takes note of this report? It is so decided. We can now proceed to item number 8 of our agenda, approval of the subject items for the resolutions to be adopted by the Standing Committees Peace and International Security and respectively on Sustainable Development at the 150th IPU Assembly and appointment of the rapporteurs. May I draw your attention to document A 148 8R1REV. As you will see, the Standing Committee on Peace and International Security is proposing as a subject item for the next 1-year cycle the theme of the role of parliaments in advancing a 2-state solution in Palestine. Mr. Bouchet of Algeria, Mr. Boutemea of Ireland have been designated as rapporteurs on this subject item. Is the Assembly ready to adopt this decision? It is so decided. Moreover, as you will see, the Standing Committee on Sustainable Development is proposing as its subject item for the next 1-year cycle the theme of parliamentary strategies to mitigate the long-lasting impact of conflicts, including armed conflicts, on sustainable development. Mr. Fogil from Poland, Ms. Faiz from Bahrain, and Ms. Emma Muteka from Namibia have been designated as the rapporteurs on this subject item. Is the Assembly ready to adopt this decision? It is so decided. Let us now proceed to item 5. We welcome our President back to the seat.
Ladies and gentlemen, colleagues, we will now start hearing from our chairs of different geopolitical groups. So we will begin with Speaker Chaudhary from Bangladesh, who will be presenting on behalf of the Asia Pacific Group. The chair of Asia Pacific Group. And then we'll be followed by Speaker from Algeria, Speaker Bougali, who will be representing the Arab Group, and then Africa Group will follow. Speaker Chaudhary, you have the floor. Thank you.
Madam President of IPU, Secretary General, distinguished delegates, a very good afternoon to you all. It's a very special privilege for me to chair the meeting of Asia Pacific Group, which was held on the 23rd of March 2024 at the 148th IPU Assembly in Geneva, Switzerland. I am also delighted to share with you that I have undertaken the responsibility to lead Asia Pacific Group as the chair for the next 1 year. 32 member states of Asia Pacific Group were present in the meeting and took part in resolving all agendas on the basis of mutual consensus. The meeting started with opening remarks by myself as the chair of the group. Agenda of the meeting was adopted at the beginning with inclusion of an additional agenda of filling in vacancy of Vice President position of Executive Committee of IPU as proposed by Australia. Australia was given the floor to place the additional agenda, and the name of the Member of Parliament from India, Ms. Sarangi, was presented to me and adopted with adoption of the additional agenda. Mr. K. Sub Sang, Member of House of Representatives of Thailand, filled the vacancy in the Committee to promote respect for international humanitarian law. One emergency item was placed by Indonesia and Malaysia in relation to the situation in Gaza, and on the basis of majority vote of the members of the group, the proposal was forwarded to the Governing Council of IPU. Some reports were presented, and amongst them was ASEAN +3 group report. While China and Australian male speakers were included in the preparatory committee of the upcoming World Speakers Conference 2025, no women speakers' name could be found. 2 women members of parliament, one from Iran and one from Pakistan, was forwarded for consideration by the IPU. Let me conclude by expressing my heartfelt thanks to Madam President of the IPU, Honorable Dr. Tulia Akson, Speaker of Tanzania, for attending the Asia-Pacific Group meeting amidst her very busy schedule and speaking to all members. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much, Madam Speaker, for those very informative words. I had already mentioned Speaker Abougali from Algeria, who will be representing the Arab group. Mr. Speaker, you have the floor. Will be followed by Africa, and then Grulak will come up.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Ma'ali Ra'isa.
In the name of God, the compassionate, the merciful, Madam President, Secretary General, dear colleagues, parliamentarians, delegations, greetings to all of you, and I do wish you a safe trip home. On behalf of the Arab geopolitical group, I wish every success to this assembly, and I want to thank all of those who put in such great work in organizing the assembly. It was also extremely sad that we were unable to accept a resolution on the emergency item for the second consecutive time at this assembly. As representatives of our peoples, we believe that the objectives of this organization to preserve peace and security in the world and give priority to the people of our countries, it's a great shame that we weren't able to accept that resolution, particularly for the Palestinian people and in the Gaza Strip, in view of the barbaric acts being carried out by the Israeli army, supported by countries who claim to promote peace and security. It's an absolute scandal, particularly given what happened in Afghanistan and Iraq. We know that there have been excuses and arguments used to try to justify what the Palestinian people is suffering. The destruction of the infrastructure, the destruction of schools, places of worship, hospitals, and we know that more than 30,000 people have already died. It makes us fear for what may be yet to come. Brothers and sisters, ladies and gentlemen, I think it's now time to review our working procedures and indeed the working procedures within the United Nations, where the noble principles on which our organizations were based are not being respected. So I sincerely hope that in the future we will be able to bring messages of peace and coexistence. May peace be with all of you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker, and also President of the Arab Group. I had already mentioned Mr. Bowden, who is representing the Africa Geopolitical Group. Okay, I would request that all the presidents please come and sit here so that it's easier to take the floor. So the president of the Africa Geopolitical Group, Mr. Bowden from Algeria, will take the floor now and will be followed by Grulak. 12 plus will also come up.
سيدة رئيس الاتحاد البرلماني الدولي سيدة جوليا.
Madam President, Ms. Axon, Secretary General of the IPU, Martin Chongong, speakers, heads of delegations, our geopolitical group hopes very sincerely that we've had a successful assembly, and I'd like to pay tribute to the President, the Secretary General, and all of the staff of the IPU for having put in such hard work to organize the assembly and ensure our successful deliberations. I also wish to say that maybe we couldn't reach an agreement on a resolution on an emergency item at this assembly, but the disagreement was about one single word, and on behalf of all of us, I would like to pay tribute to South Africa's role in trying to shed light on the situation in the Gaza Strip. And our geopolitical group, with the Arab geopolitical group, we supported the South African proposal. The 12 plus group supported the Danish proposal, and both proposals focused on the situation in Gaza. And I think at the end of the day, we haven't really failed. I believe that in general, this assembly has managed to highlight the importance and seriousness of that situation. And Madam President, Secretary General, I hope we won't forget that, and that in the future we will be able to adopt a more constructive attitude in that respect. The Palestine question is one of the most serious crises that we are facing, a people that is facing genocide. A people that need us to raise our voices, and the Security Council has now adopted a resolution calling for an immediate ceasefire in the Gaza Strip. And the Security Council resolution also referred to political prisoners and the need to implement past Security Council resolutions. How is it that the Security Council can agree on that language, and yet here at the 148th Assembly, where we parliamentarians are freer to speak than our governments, we weren't able to do so. And on behalf of our group, we don't believe that this whole process has been a failure, as I said earlier. I believe that it's something that will help us think carefully about our working procedures in the future. Madam President, Secretary General, our geopolitical group, which brings together 54 parliaments, is working hard to strengthen parliamentary activity in Africa so that we can work ever closer with IPU, and also to ensure that we digitalize our activities more in future, so that we can keep up to date with technological progress, using technological tools more effectively in our parliaments. On behalf of our group, allow me once again to indicate our support for the Security Council resolution that has called for the freeing of prisoners in that region. And I sincerely hope that all of the efforts of our Secretary General and our President at the Union will take that into account as well, and ensure, or try to ensure, that the focus remains on this, the most serious crisis that we currently face in the Gaza Strip. We have more room for maneuver than our governments. We should be able to pool our efforts in order to try to put an end to this situation and bring peace to this region, which we have all waited so long to achieve. Algeria has always tried to support peaceful coexistence. And we have asked the United Nations to agree a day on peaceful coexistence. So thank you, President. Thank you, Secretary General. I do hope that our next assembly will be even more effective. I believe that this is the most important organization in the world after the United Nations. And we can't allow it to fail, and to fail the aspirations of our peoples to defend just causes in the world. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I would now go to GRULAC. I will now call the President of the GRULAC, Sofia Carvajal from Mexico. Please, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mrs. President. I will begin en español. Voy a hablar en español. Querida Presidenta.
Dear President Julia Axon, thank you so much for your support, the way in which you supported the GRULAC. Thank you so much for your generous attitude, Secretary General Martin Chungong. Thank you for the way in which you've supported our group as well. We really want to thank you for that. And we also wish to extend our thanks to Ambassador Anna Phillips. She's helped me so much personally, and I really want to thank her as well for your support. And if I could go on by mentioning Sally Ann Sadler for all her support over 30 years. She's helped members of GRULAC so much, especially the technical team, and I'd just like to wish her every success in this next stage in her life, and I really hope she enjoys it. Thank you so much for all of these years, and we wish you every success on the part of my group. Can I also say to IPU that I'm delighted that there are so many Latin American countries participating actively in this organization. it's so important to be in such a key organization because of the impact that we can have in the real world and because of the importance of the issues we address here. We build links with all of the dialogue, negotiation, work that we put in. But we need to be more effective. The world continues to move on. We are facing major global crises. And I'm so proud of the work that the Latin American Caribbean Group has done in its internal meetings. We've managed to agree on a common declaration on organized crime in our region. And I think that's an example of how, with dialogue and a concerted effort, we can reach common ground. And we can come out with a joint declaration that's useful for all of our countries. So I think with the example of our region, I'd urge you to look to that and to believe in the power of dialogue so that we can make even greater efforts in future. You know, it's so important that multilateralism is strengthened for the benefit of all. Thank you.
Thank you so much, President of GRULAC. I'll now call the representative of the President of 12+, Ms. Routon from France. You have the floor. Thank you so much.
Merci, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you, Madam President, Secretary General, dear colleagues, and I'm speaking on behalf of our President, Andrés Ruifoy. The 12+ group met on the 22nd of March for a long meeting in the afternoon, and indeed every morning from the 24th to the 26th of March. The members of the 12+ group were very active within the different committees, in particular the Standing Committee on Sustainable Development, which considered and approved the draft resolution of a colleague from the 12+ group, Ms. Lesia Vazelenko, on partnerships for climate action, promoting access to green, affordable energy and encouraging innovation and accountability and equity. And that will remain on the agenda over the next many years, I believe. And so I wish to congratulate Ms. Vazelenko and Mira Sultan from the United Arab Emirates and the colleague from India. So the president of the 12+ group is also delighted that the Standing Committee on Peace and International Security has managed to adopt Mr. Lacroix from Belgium's resolution on the humanitarian and social impact of autonomous weapon systems and artificial intelligence. And that's a very important and complex issue for a number of reasons. The discussions in the committee were very difficult. The text was supported by a large majority, but was not adopted unanimously, even within our 12+ group. Some countries would have liked to limit the scope of the resolution to lethal weapon systems. But members continued to talk to each other, and democracy played its role. And I just want to pay tribute to our Belgian colleague for his excellent work. Artificial intelligence will remain on the agenda as well, because the Standing Committee on Human Rights Democracy and Human Rights will address a resolution at the 148th Assembly on the impact of artificial intelligence on democracy, human rights, and the rule of law. Ms. Rumpel-Garner of Canada, also a member of the 12+ group, and her colleague from Tanzania will be the co-rapporteurs. We also wish to express our satisfaction with the second motion of the Standing Committee on United Nations Affairs, presided over by David McGuinty of Canada, and that addressed the reform of the UN Security Council. And that could hardly be more important at a time when we are seeing armed conflicts in many regions around the world. And we deplore the fact that this assembly, once again, couldn't find a consensus relating to the Middle East conflict. At Luanda, the president of 12+ expressed the hope that we would have less conflictual discussions at this assembly, and said that it was our duty as parliamentarians to continue to do everything possible to address the current situation. And in spite of your efforts, Madam President, and the efforts of many delegations, who we'd like to thank. Collectively, we failed to reach a compromise and an agreement, but we want to remain constructive, and we pay tribute to the efforts of many delegations to try to reach that agreement. The resolution adopted on Monday at the UN Security Council shows us that it is possible, even though we may have great regrets. There is great tension around this conflict, but that shouldn't distract us from the situation in Ukraine, where the war is continuing unabated, and we urge Russian parliamentarians to play their role instead of simply parroting the words of their regime, where there continue to be many war crimes and crimes against humanity. We thank colleagues for the rich discussions, and the IPU Secretariat has once again played its role in a very excellent fashion. Once again, we'd like to pay tribute to a pillar of the Secretariat who is now taking a well-deserved retirement, Sally-Ann Sadler. Madam President, thank you as well for the way in which you have chaired our deliberations for the first time with great wisdom and patience, and with a sense of diplomacy in quite challenging circumstances. So we look forward to seeing everybody again at the next assembly in this very hall. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Ruton. We will now hear from Eurasia, the representative of the president of the Eurasia Group, Ms. Sovinar Vadanyang. You have the floor, madam.
Thank you, Chair. Madam President, colleagues, on behalf of the Eurasia Geopolitical Group, I wish to thank all parliamentarians, the IPU and the International Secretariat for the tremendous work done. Also, let us thank you personally, Madam President, and the Secretary General for the statement on the situation in Gaza. Despite the fact that an emergency item was not passed, we can state that the 148th Assembly was a success. The subject item of the general debate is very topical and enabled legislators to address parliamentary diplomacy, which nowadays plays a crucial role for many countries. I would like also to mention Secretary General's personal commitment and contribution to this topic. As a female parliamentarian, I wish to emphasize IPU's contribution to the issue of inclusiveness when no one is left behind. Dear colleagues, since this year, the Global Conference of Young MPs will take place in Yerevan, I am pleased to say that we are waiting for you in our sunny Armenia in September. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Dear colleagues, we have come to an end of listening to our geopolitical groups and the statements that they had to make. So we are very grateful for all the leadership of all the geopolitical groups. You are doing an amazing job, and we look forward to keep working closely with you. Let me now take this opportunity to welcome our Secretary General for some concluding remarks. He looks surprised because we have completed, I think, the session before time, right? Thank you so much. Secretary General, you have the floor.
Can you hear? Yes, you can hear me. Madam President, thank you for giving me the floor. Let me say that, yes, I'm really amazed because we are finishing on time. This is your maiden assembly, and we see the presiding officer in you. You have chaired the debates of this assembly in a very efficient manner, and so we can pride ourselves on being able to finish on time or way ahead of time. And since we are finishing way ahead of time, Madam President, maybe I should take about a couple of hours to say thank you. I just want to thank you all on behalf of my colleagues and myself for the very kind words that you have expressed in various forms here during this past several days. We are just honored to be able to be of service to the global community of parliamentarians that you represent. And you can be sure that your words of encouragement go down our hearts, and we will continue to do our best. As we draw the curtain to this 148th Assembly, I cannot help going back to the 30th of June, 1889, when the founding fathers of this organization convened the inaugural conference of the IPU in Paris, a few hours by train from here. At that gathering, there were 94 delegates, 94 men. There were no women in that meeting. All were men, MPs convened by Kremer and Passy. They came from a handful of countries, nine countries attended the inaugural conference of the IPU. Today, as we rise, we see that over the past 1 week or so, 1,500 persons, men and women, have converged on Geneva, including 700 members of parliament here, where the women account for 36% of the total participation here. And you'll agree with me, that our founding fathers, Kremer and Passy, would be smiling all the way to the bank because of the fact that their dream has come true, that the global parliamentary community that has expanded to this extent can come to the city of peace and hold a dialogue that is intended to promote dialogue, as many of you have said here, but also to bring about peace in the world, to bring about democracy, and ultimately development. Madam President, members of Parliament present here, I don't want to go into the details of the deliberations that you have had during these past several days. I believe the various reports bear testament to the wealth of the outcomes of this very important global gathering. But let me mention one thing that I believe has been a hallmark of this assembly. You will have seen that the IPU is increasingly digitally transformed. And as I say this, I remember a conversation I had with the Speaker of Parliament a couple of days ago, and he said, Mr. Secretary General, it looks like you are economizing all the resources of this organization. I said, how so, Mr. Speaker? He said, we don't have any bags, we don't have any conference bags here. And I was quick to point out to him that the IPU was walking the talk when it came to fighting climate change. I said we had a long-term policy of reducing the volume of paper that we produce in our different meetings and operations. And that is why we did not find it necessary to provide bags, because there was no paper to move around. Everything is on your cell phone today. Everything is on a tablet. You have QR codes, barcodes all over the place so that you have access to those documents that before you would have had to pick up at a desk here in large quantities that you would leave in the hotel. So it is our way of promoting that campaign that we launched last year, Parliaments for the Planet. We show that we want to walk the talk, and we hope that our member parliaments will emulate this example. In a way, therefore, we have gone electronic, in fact, and we are heartened by the fact that the members have now decided to grapple with the intricacies of artificial intelligence, trying to see how they can harness the positive potential from this technology, and also mitigating the risks and dangers. I believe this is something that you, as the global parliamentary leaders, will be doing as a service to humanity. So, as we conclude this session, I just want to refer to something that is happening this year. Reference has been made to the fact that this organization was born in 1889, which means that this year we are 135 years old. Somebody said that we might disappear because we become irrelevant. It's not true. The values that you defend, the values that were articulated by our governing, or rather our founding fathers, are enduring. Dialogue for peace. And so we would like for you to use this 135th anniversary of the IPU to amplify the messages that our founding fathers did bequeath to us. We hope that this will be an opportunity for you to rededicate to peace efforts, to peace initiatives around the world, as this year is the focal year for peace for the IPU. We hope that you will use the opportunity to organize events in your countries to celebrate this hallmark. And I believe I speak on behalf of my colleague, the Director of Communications, who is here, that we stand ready to provide every assistance that we can provide so that you can make that day a success. And please do let us know so that we can amplify what you are doing in support of your day. So, Madam President, let me, on behalf of my colleagues in the Secretariat, say goodbye to you all. It's only an au revoir, as they say in French, because I know you will be coming back here in October, and we're looking forward to serve you when you are here in October. Bon voyage, therefore.
Thank you so much, Mr. Secretary General, for those very kind remarks. I now invite myself to give you the remarks. Mr. Secretary General, honorable speakers, deputy speakers, members of parliament, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, let me start by expressing my deepest gratitude to all the colleagues who have played a very pivotal role in the seamless organization and the success of the 148th IPU Assembly. Your tireless work, passion, and dedication have not gone unnoticed. I would also like to extend a heartfelt thank you to the Swiss authorities for their warm welcome and for providing an ideal setting for our deliberations. Thank you. The IPU is headquartered in Geneva. As such, we have an embassy here, or even better, a second home for all of us, 46,000 members of parliament in the world. 6 years after the last Geneva Assembly, I have to say I'm very happy to be back here, and I cannot think of a better way to begin my term as President of IPU. 719 members of parliament from 141 different countries, including 51 speakers of parliament, have come here to deliberate on the theme Parliamentary Diplomacy, Building Bridges for Peace and Understanding. This has sent a very strong signal to the international community, to our friends at the United Nations and international organizations, diplomats, international NGOs, and other multilateral stakeholders in this city and all over the world. As parliamentarians, we are contributing, supporting, and accompanying your efforts. We are eager to advance and reinvigorate multilateralism with a strong parliamentary dimension, and we must base our work on the principle of inclusive dialogue as the only way to achieve long-lasting peace. My fellow parliamentarians, your active participation, insightful contributions, and unwavering commitment to the IPU
have been the foundation of the Assembly's success. Over the last week, we have had many inspiring examples of how you employ parliamentary diplomacy to address the multiple challenges to peace and international security our world is facing today. But we have not only heard examples in speeches, we have also practiced parliamentary diplomacy with the goal of taking much needed steps towards peace. This assembly will go down in history as the first time that the speakers of Armenia and Azerbaijan sat down to discuss how their parliaments could support ongoing efforts to normalize relations between the two countries. Thank you. Thank you. The IPU task force on the peaceful resolution of the war in Ukraine continued to be one of the few remaining formats in which Ukrainians and Russians engage, and it is looking to make incremental progress on the issue of displaced children. We have adopted significant resolutions on the implications of autonomous weapon systems and artificial intelligence, on affordable green energy, and a motion on Security Council reform. And we have held substantive discussions on multilateralism, interfaith dialogue, human and common security, and minority rights, among many other issues. Dear friends, we have adopted a major political statement of the need to urgently address the situation in Gaza. We must now move from words to action. We have adopted our Geneva Declaration on Parliamentary Diplomacy, emphasizing our collective responsibility to foster dialogue, mutual respect, and pursuit of peaceful coexistence across political, ideological, religious, and geographical divide. This is not merely about conducting parliamentary diplomacy for the sake of it. It is about bringing the outcomes of our dialogue back to our home countries and making good use of our legislative oversight and budgetary powers to translate them into national realities for the well-being of our people. Dear friends, as I mentioned in my opening remarks to this Assembly in 2024, the IPU will be celebrating its 135th anniversary. The world has changed dramatically since the 19th century, yet our mission remains ever so vital. I would like to reiterate my invitation to take our Geneva Declaration back to your parliaments and organize a special event on parliamentary diplomacy, perhaps in advance of the International Day of Parliamentarism on June 30th, which coincides with the IPU's anniversary. In addition to commemorating the International Day of Parliamentarians, it is crucial for us to reflect upon the effectiveness of the Inter-Parliamentary Union and its impact on our respective nations. As we convene during the general debate, it is essential that parliamentarians not only share their views on the theme under discussion, but also provide an account of the progress made in implementing the IPU's resolutions. This practice will enable us to learn from our colleagues who have efficiently and effectively implemented relevant resolutions, while also holding ourselves accountable to the commitments made at IPU meetings. By measuring our own implementation efforts against these benchmarks, we can ensure that resolutions are not mere rhetoric, but translate into concrete actions that benefit our societies. This introspection and measurement of implementation will strengthen our collective endeavors to effectively implement IPU's resolutions. It will foster mutual support, collaboration, and the exchange of best practices among member parliaments. Recognizing the areas where support and capacity building are needed, we can seek the necessary resources to overcome challenges and fulfill our commitments. Through this progress and this process, we can ensure that the IPU remains a driving force for genuine and impactful change, where resolutions are transformed into actions that positively shape our democratic societies. This Assembly has marked the beginning of my tenure as President of IPU. And I would like to say that the IPU is only as strong as its membership. And through your engagement, unity, and determination, we will be able to make a tangible difference in the lives of the people we serve. I look forward to seeing all of you at our next Assembly in October this year. I will now beg your indulgence to go on my seat so that we rise together for our IPU anthem to mark the closing of our 148th Assembly in Geneva. Thank you so much for listening to me.
May we all rise for our IPU anthem, please. I now declare the 148th Assembly of the IPU officially closed.
An absolute pleasure.
laisser un peu saluer.